Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light for my path. Amen. People of God, to have your wife lying in a hospital bed in one of the most prestigious and acclaimed hospitals that hold a very renowned neonatal unit is a very encouraging thing. Yet to have doctors come into that waiting room to tell you, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. Your baby is not going to make it. That was the hardest thing a parent could hear. Essentially, what the doctor was saying was that there is no hope, that there is no comfort, that there is no possibility for healing, that there's no avenue for which we could fix this problem. There are many things that go through a person's mind at that point. Things like confusion and denial and anger and panic and rage. And I think we felt alone. Experiencing something like the loss of a child, or the sudden death of a loved one, or a terrifying diagnosis of cancer, or some other illness, merits a feeling of loss. It merits a feeling of hurt. When facing something difficult, something heart-wrenching, something devastating, it's natural to reject that diagnosis and the one who makes it. However, when the OBGYN comes in and says, "Congratulations, it's a healthy baby," I'm sure the response isn't, "Are you sure? Isn't there anything we can do to fix this?" Or if the oncologist comes in and says, "It's true, what we thought was the case is actually the case, but I don't want you to be afraid. I'm able to remove it completely and you'll be able to continue living as normal." I'm sure we're not thinking, "Well, do you have to? Can't you just leave it in?" You see, anger, frustration, and hurt arise from the news that comes from loss and illness, not healing and a cure. And yet when it came to Jesus and the healings he came to perform, the reaction that one might expect didn't occur. You see, instead of this great reverberation of joy because of this awesome thing that was happening, there was this cloud of uncertainty, this idea of doubt, both in the message and in the messenger. And so Jesus tells them this proverb that reveals what's going on in the inside. "Well, that's all great, Jesus, that you're saying all these wonderful things, but where's the proof to back it up?" You see, they heard the work that was going on in Capernaum. They knew about the miraculous feedings. They heard about the numerous healings, and they wanted that too. You see, they were looking to be dazzled. They weren't looking to be delivered. They were expecting to be on the edge of their seats in suspense, waiting for something great to happen, not kneeling humbly at the feet of a great healer that was before them. You see, all they saw when they saw Jesus was just the son of Joseph. Now, it was possible maybe they considered he could be a miracle worker. Possibly he was a good man. Maybe he was a decent teacher. Perhaps he was a positive role model for compassionate living. And maybe he was an effective and convincing speaker. But after that, that's it. There wasn't anything else. And yet Jesus wouldn't let it go. You see, in fact, what he did was he took them back a few hundred years. And he reminded them that God sent his prophets to their ancestors to proclaim a message where they weren't listening, but turning away. A message that they weren't believing, but trusting something else. And so in response, what God did was that he showered his care and his cure for whatever they were dealing with on other people who were suffering, people who were not his own. He provided aid in the form of water and food for a pagan foreign woman during a time of drought and famine. He provided healing and cleansing for a governing official from a rival nation that was enemies with Israel. Now we get it. We get where those Nazarenes were coming from. I mean, after all, let's say a doctor walked into a hospital room where you were at, and he said, guess what? I got a cure. That means that your sadness is going away. That illness that you've been struggling with forever, that's going to be gone. And not only is it going to be gone, but you're never going to get sick again. And the pain, forget about it. It won't be there anymore. I think we might be skeptical about that doctor. And that's okay. It's natural. It's natural in view of something like that happening, where you might question his mortality rate, where you might investigate where this doctor got his education and training. You might wonder, is there a possibility of a positive outcome that he's talking about? It's okay to doubt. It's okay to question. It's natural. But it's not okay to question Jesus. It's not okay to doubt him. We don't have the right to demand that Jesus validate his identity with miracles before us, nor do we have the right to command that he perform some great sign to guarantee his promises. And yet that doesn't stop us anyways. Jesus' healing can hurt because sometimes that healing that we see is not the healing that we experience, but the healing we see in the lives of others. And then it causes us to develop this why them, not me kind of attitude. We soak around in our situations, and we live out our lives comparing ourselves to others. People we know, people we don't know, but we look at them, and we look at their situations, we look at their problems, and we weigh them out and say, are you kidding? How is theirs greater than mine? How is their pain intenser than mine is? How are they suffering more than me? And yet they are the ones that get healed. They are the ones that get cured. They are the ones that have their problems resolved. Cancer is a devastating and horrific disease that whittles its way and rips its way through the life of the person who suffers from it, along with the family of the people who watch them go through it. And it leads people to ask questions like, why me? Why my mother? Why my sister? My brother? Why my child? How could this possibly benefit me or anybody else? I just don't get it. Why, God? Why do I have to have a journey filled with pain? Filled with sorrow, filled with terror and confusion? Why do I have to live in a saddened world where I get to see and watch people slaughter innocent children that are unwanted by ungrateful parents, while we suffer to be patient, waiting to raise one to know you? Believe me, I get it. Just like the Nazarenes did. But healing can hurt, especially when you see others going through a better process than you, and you wonder, why not me? And that hurts. It with rage. But that same rage is also felt because the healing that he provides is not the healing that we want. You see, we want a clean bill of health. We want the cancer removed. We want the people and children to live. We want the disease to go away. We want to live a carefree life. We want healing from financial instability and the stress that follows it. We want healing from loss, whether it be people that we love, or whether it be things that we adore and consider irreplaceable, or whether it be situations that are just too good to pass up or let go or end. Friends, the healing he came to bring is the healing that causes us to face the truth. And that truth is that the awful stuff that you and I go through, the difficulties of illness and disease, of pain and suffering, of loss, they don't just come about just because we live in an imperfect, flawed, problematic world that has problems. It occurs because you and I are imperfect, flawed, problematic people, and we have something wrong with us. And that something that's wrong is a disease that, yes, causes us to move and has us breathing and has us functioning, but merely as animated corpses, trapped in darkness with no thought other than for ourselves and for the desires that feed us. And the truth of the matter is that because we're awful, because there's this disease, it doesn't matter what individual problem Jesus fixes. If he didn't fix that problem, all the rest wouldn't matter. Because death would find us anyways. And pain would continue forever. And the least of our problems would be a head cold or cancer. That disease isn't content to just belittle us, to make us feel worthless, and to rid our bodies or give our bodies such devastating problems that we're just ready to give up and call it quits. No, it seeks our doom. It seeks our destruction. It wants to rip everything of joy from our lives. And the most prominent one is the knowledge of a God who loves us. And it's that pain, that illness, that disease and problem that Jesus came to fix. That situation that he came to resolve, that disease he came to cure. Because it's the one that hurts him the most to see us struggle with and lose to. You see, it eroded a life free of misfortune and pain. It pollutes our hearts with questions and worries and anxieties. And it leads us in that hurt to just say, forget about it. To just give up. To rip our hands away from the one who wants to comfort us. Because he's the one to blame. And you know where that leaves us? That leaves us standing or kneeling or sitting in a place of hurt, in a place of sorrow and desperation and anger and rage and bitterness, a place of loneliness with no hope and no healing, where it's easier to be numb than to trust, where it's easier to just exist instead of live, where it's easier to doubt instead of trust. And it leaves us in a place where we say things like, you love me? You say you love me. Then show me. You say you're there for me? Then reveal yourself. You say you came to give me a full life. Well, I want it now. I don't want it later. And we close our ears and we shut our eyes and we rip away from the one who's constantly telling us the truth. And we walk on. But Jesus, he answers you and me. He says, the proof of my love is the fact that though the world feels like it's closing in, though the pain is weighing down, though you feel like you're so pushed far to the ground you can't possibly go any lower, you're still standing. You still draw breath. You still live in my grace. You still are fed. You have a home. You have warmth. You doubt that I'm there? Do you know how many times the devil asked to sift you today? How many times the world was ready to cave on around you? How many accidents almost took your life this very moment? And yet they didn't. Because of me. Do you know how much pain is waiting to grip you? And it doesn't because my hand has pushed it away. Do you know how close you came from losing that job, from losing your home, from losing means to provide for yourself and the ones you love, and you didn't? Because it was my hand that kept that job secure in a difficult time. It's my word that directs your steps when you were ready to throw in the towel and give up at every moment. And yet you doubt the love and my presence. Friends, the life you and I desire is the life that he's already provided. It's a life that we don't have to wait for an eternity to get because we have it now. And that life comes through the healing of Christ. Because it's a healing where Jesus comes to you and me and he says, I get it. I get it. I know the difficult world in which you live. I know the hardships you face. I know the struggles that plague you. I know because it's the world I came in for you. I know it's because the situations I suffered for you. I know about your pain and agony because I felt it in my beatings. I embraced it in my lashes. I received it in the nails. My children, I know you're suffering because I felt the devastation of the elements with no shelter to call home. I've lived moments of starvation as hunger consumed me in the wilderness. I've felt the power of drought as every ounce of fluid in my body was spilled out on the floor as I was suspended in the air on a chunk of wood. I've felt loss and abandonment by the very ones I came to save, who laughed at me, who scoffed at me, who slandered me. Those who left me in the hands of my enemies to be slaughtered. Enemies that mocked me as I gasped for air. Well, my father looked at me with disgust and turned away because he didn't see the beloved son that he loves. He saw you and the pain I carried for you. You want to talk about death? I know death. Because of the man who raised me. Because of the man who clothed me and fed me and inspired me and molded me and taught me all about faithfulness by the example he gave by taking care of a child that was not his own, only to die before he saw him become a man. You want to talk about death? I know it. You want to talk about the fear of it? I embraced it as the drops of sweat were like blood that came from my face. Death is what my purpose was and why I came. Death to suffer for you. So that that pain, that fear, that anxiety, that disease doesn't claim you. Because I hold you in my right hand. My friends, the healing Jesus came to bring can hurt. It hurt because it's not the answer that we're looking for. It also can hurt because the situation in which we may find ourselves in does not have a spot where we are going to be rescued from it in this life. Not because God is vindictive, not because God hates us, or because he's left us, but because through those moments, through those hardships, through that pain and that agony, he uses that to testify to his strength. He uses that to testify to his grace. Not just to you, and not just to the person who may be lying next to you in a hospital room bed, and not just to the people that you love the most, but to all people everywhere. Because the things that you and I suffer with are the things that all people everywhere throughout time suffer. And the difference that separates you and me is that, or you and I and them, is that we have a healing that they did not. We have a healing that is secure and pure. And yes, it's a healing that may hurt. But the one that hurts the most is Jesus, because he sees us going through it. It hurts him the most because that healing came about by the life that he laid down on the line and the death that he experienced to achieve it. Yes, healing can hurt. But it merely hurts when you take your eyes off of him. When you stop listening and when you turn away. Because the healing he came to provide is the one that fixed the ultimate problem. And that healing awaits your ears. It's in the love and compassion and promises of our God, who says, never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you. But though you may suffer here for a little while, the glory that awaits you in eternity far outweighs anything that's here. And to cast your cares on me, because I love you. Amen. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, guard your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen.